In this video, I'm going to take Genesis chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, and just part of 7, and very quickly show how that's my life. That's a human cycle, life cycle right there. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. What is Genesis? Genesis exists for a reason, but Genesis is something that is common from antiquity, simply held in a genre that, and people don't look at very many things. They don't learn very many things. The more you look at, the more you realize that there's something common in there. How do we function with Genesis, though? I will just leave everything else behind. All right, I will be treating Genesis like a biblical scholar, but also as somebody who's finding a pattern in there that can be analyzed and that it plays out in the human psyche. So I'm going to take it to another layer. It's not going to be supernatural. It's not going to be preaching. It's not going to be teaching. It's not going to be denying. It's going to be saying, here is what is in this package. It would be akin to telling an Aesop's fable, for example, the tortoise and the hare, and watching two people debate whether or not it really happened or not, while you're sitting back going, you know what, guys, the story's carrying something else. You got to look at that differently. Okay, that's what I'm doing right here with this biblical stuff. I'm going to say you got to look at that differently than what you're looking at it. You can't say it's true. You can't say it's baloney. You got to say, what is that? There is something there if you see it. All right, so here's how it's going to work. It has to play out in the psyche. So how does that work? There's elements in here. We got God, we got Adam, we got Eve, we got Cain, we got Abel, we got all kinds of elements. If they all belong in the psyche, how does that happen? There's a way to do it. Remembering this is very old, and they did this for this was akin to their media. They did this through their entire lifetimes. They didn't read, they didn't write. They had these memorized. Try to get into a different, I would say, a mental we're caught in so many modern biases that it's hard for us to understand how well they knew this stuff, and that we think we're full of ourselves. We don't know this very well, okay? All right, so here's what we have. This is going to work by playing it out in the theater of the mind, but it's going to have to work this way. First of all, what is God? God is where we emerge from, and we connect with it from the higher awareness. You can talk to God this way. Here's what the God element would be. If you're old enough that you're starting to get frazzled in life and you're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning, tossing and turning and can't get something resolved, and you've got a mental turmoil going on, that's a natural thing for people to do as you get older. That is, you got that mental turmoil going on and you're in bed and you're tossing, you're turning, you got to work tomorrow, you're checking the time. I got to get up in an hour or two or something like that. I can't. Why? I'm going to be tired and all that. So you got this mental turmoil going on, but as you're thinking of things, this person, that person, I got to do this and that, I hate this and they did this, and whatever it is that's going on that's playing in your mind that you can't get a hold of, every once in a while, another voice comes in that says something like, hey, you got to let it go. There's nothing you can do. You got to sleep. Or it might address you in some other way. Eckhart Tolle talks about that, him having that experience one night where he began to become, he was asking himself, he was saying to himself, I can't live with myself anymore. And then he began to realize, who is it that I can't live with myself? If I can't live with myself, it seems like there's multiple entities in here. And that's exactly what God would be, the connection with God, that higher awareness. We don't have to be asleep. We can be awake. When you're caught up in the memories, you're caught up in the emotions, you're caught up in the fear of things that are going on, you're not there. In fact, you analyze this for yourself. When that's happening and you catch yourself doing that again, when that happens again and you hear that voice coming in, stop and pay attention, and you'll realize that if you go into that voice, when that voice is talking, you shift away from that turmoil, the emotional turmoil. When that's not there and the thoughts are swimming in your mind, the emotional turmoil is there. But when this voice comes in and you sit from here, you're like, I don't feel that turmoil from here. That's because you're living through the memories. The memories are either, and conflict and all of that are either controlling your conscious, or you're allowing your conscious to drift to where the higher awareness is. And the conscious can live through the memories or not. At those times we're living through those memories, we're living through unresolved things. And we need to understand that we need to go take your mind when that higher awareness comes in and says you got to let it go. Instead of dismissing that and slipping back into the memories, go, oh, stop going to the memories. Hang on to this higher awareness. Yeah, you do have to let it go. That's the true you. We live through our memories. until we know better. Now, if this sounds far-fetched to begin with, that God element is that higher awareness, I want to suggest something to you, that if you read Genesis, you're going to see that God disappears after Cain and Abel and doesn't reappear again until it's time for the flood. After he calls Abram and puts him in a land of Canaan, it's not long before he disappears and doesn't reappear again before the calling of Abraham, when Abram becomes Abraham. I'm going to suggest to you that there's a sequence. There's more going on than might meet the eye. The reason that God disappears is because when we're little, we don't live through our memories. But as we grow and we age, we begin to live through our memories. But we want to, at some point, understand that, stop living through the turmoil of the memories, shift back to connecting with God and living that way, becoming the called person right there. There's a sequence going on that is very purposeful that would explain why that is God, as opposed to something that won't talk back and is kind of capricious and what do you need? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Now, if you are in the moment, having joy, laughing, fun, everything is okay, that everything out away from you is gone. It's not even there. You're just living happy, joyous right here. Then that is living with God right there. The consciousness is what moves around and goes between things. Okay, so God is that higher awareness. And we come from there, and when we die, we go back to there. And throughout life, we're supposed to try and maintain existence with that. Walking with God is that right there, if you do it at the mentally interactive layer. If you don't, you're going to carry it. That means to you that you have a belief system that you're walking with God, but you're not really doing anything mentally interactive. You're at a shallower layer. You're carrying it. You're not interacting with it. Okay, so what do we have then? We've got the consciousness, which is we experience everything from our conscious. We see things. We've got our five senses that come in. We judge life through perceptions, though, that are in our mind. That's going to be something later that's called the mote in the eye, the bundle of things that we have judged in life that we're living through and having experience. We're living life through that, and we don't like our life, but we're living through that mote, that bundle, that jumble of things. Okay, so the consciousness is the one that feels it and that has the experience and decides the emotional quality of that, and that gets stored away. As that gets stored away, it gets put away as, we're going to call those offspring. First of all, before the offspring, we become self-aware and we know things, and we're little kids, we're laughing, we're happy, we're giggling and things like that. That is, but we're self-aware. We know things. We can ask for food, bananas, fun, play, sandbox, talking, things like that. We may not remember that now, but at some point in time, we're happy little kids, presumably, and doing something along those lines. And that at that point, our conscious and our subconscious are both there because we're self-aware. When we're super young, we don't even have memories of it. I got circumcised. I don't have any memory of that. You're too young at some point. You don't have the mental cognition. So once you get enough mental cognition, you're said to have a conscious and a subconscious. That's going to be an Adam and an Eve in a pure state. That's a mental hierarchy up here, but it's also a physical hierarchy out there in the world. So that's going to be representative of something. God, the higher awareness, Adam, the consciousness, Eve, the inner self. For each individual, it doesn't matter who you are. Male, female, doesn't matter. They're analogs. They're not real. They're holding a concept. And what do we see in Genesis? God's there first, then man emerges. So we got our consciousness, and then the human is born in the middle of there. However, some things have to happen, and the human has to get old enough to name some things, or you've got to learn enough before you're self-aware. And then what happens? Eve emerges from you as a result. Our inner self emerges as a result of our life experiences, developing enough that we know enough that we become self-aware. We go from being a live, reactionary blob to something that has cognition and can start making their own decisions. We become self-aware and we remember things. The tortoise and the hare didn't really happen. What's in the story? Okay, so then what happens is we judge things that those begin to act out later. I got hurt. I hate this. I hate something there and it keeps happening, or I'm afraid of this, or every time I see that person, I have this hatred. So now we've got something that is in cause and effect, that there's something that is cyclically happening, but that is a result of something that we're going to call a bad offspring or something, a bad child. You could have good children, you could have bad children. We're going to see that when the beautiful daughters of men get corrupted, that's what this is. Our inner qualities have been, our trust, our joy, our peace, all those things have been annihilated. That's why we need to turn inward for the flood. But at this stage, we're still building the hierarchy. Okay, so we've got what? God. We've got Adam, Eve. We've got the higher awareness, conscious, subconscious. Then we've got all the offspring as a result, the decisions, the judgments that we've made that we then live through. And then what we have is the final thing, the quality of life or the nature of the flow through life, the graces of God, the flow in the Tao, however you want to put it, the way our life is, we're experiencing our life based on the nature of this bundle of things that we're holding up here. So we got those 5 things: higher awareness, conscious, subconscious, judgments, resultant flow of life, God, Adam, Eve, offspring, graces of God. All right, the next term, and this is really critical, super duper critical to identify what sin is, because it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and you sit there as a person going, I'm a nice person. What are you talking about? I was born a sinner? I'm going to die because of what Adam did? Are you serious? Come on, that's just ridiculous. So how can that be? You know what? We all have sinned. The problem is we can't unwrap from the damn word. Sin is an analog. You know what sin is? A judgment. I've named it. I've qualified that. It could be this. I got molested, and I feel shameful, and I feel hurt, and I'm angry. That right there is a sin. It's not because you did something. We have to unwrap from what it is. It's naming something that you're going to be living through. I have now had this experience that is painful, and I'm going to be living through that experience. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. For all have begun to judge mental experiences and fall short of being connected with the higher awareness. We shift away from living from the higher self and shift towards living through the memories. Slowly at first as children, but it ramps up in life. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so we need to understand what sin is. Sin is a common thing, but sin is not what we think it is. Like you went and beat somebody and, or, whatever. All kinds of, all manner of things that we know are hurtful. Or, steal something or whatever, all that kind of stuff. Those are sins in the physical world. But when we get to the mental world, it's an analogous term that means something. It's something that you're holding on to that is going to be derogatory. It could be known as the fruits of the thistles in your garden, the demons that possess you. All of those would be the same thing. It's really a cause and effect life experience that emerges from the memory and the emotional state of that memory that we're maintaining. All of those are sins. If I say, I hate that, I hate you, look at those people this, look at those people that, all of that, all of those are sins, but it's what they are really is mental judgments that I'm classifying up here with an emotional state that is going to become the nature of what I am that I'm going to continue to live through unbeknownst to me. I may hate the hell out of something. The more I hate it, the more I get sucked into it. That's a problem. We need to learn that. Okay, so sin is a judgment. You start off naming something, well, that's good stuff. Then when sin happens, that's the bad stuff. First sin, I've lost the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was a happy place. Okay, let me get into the interpretation of it then. I think I've got all the pieces and parts in place right there. When I go through the interpretation, it has to play out in the psyche, and that's going to be it. God is my higher awareness. If you were playing it out, God would be your higher awareness. Adam is going to be my consciousness. Adam would be your consciousness. Eve would be my inner self. Eve would be your inner self. Cain and Abel would be myself as I divide later in life. Cain and Abel is yourself as you divide later in life. That's the way these work. How does a human life work? All right, let's start off. Cain and Abel in the Garden of Eden. All right, I've got the King James Version up here, and the two different creation stories are setting up a number of things, but also a mental hierarchy. I'm not going to go through it all because it's too complicated, but we've got our 5 rivers in the second one, and the one of them that flows out of the the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is a place that's a mental place for us to live. These rivers are representative of the 5 things that I talked about, the 4 mental aspects, and then the river that flows out of Eden, that's the flow of life. That's the way the life flow is. We're going to be right here, though, and get to the point where we're ready to begin. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. This is a point where we are leaving our infancy behind and becoming ourselves. We're becoming self-aware. We have enough memories, and we are playing and having fun. They were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So we're in a location where we are naked and not ashamed. What this means metaphorically for us is that, remember now, this is us. It's playing out in the mind. It's a mind space. My conscious and my subconscious are one. And they are naked because I'm a child. I have no fear, no shame, no judgments. I was not ashamed. I had nothing to hide. I wasn't covered. I was not ashamed. Okay, so what happens then is the serpent comes along and there's a temptation and there's 2 different trees to eat from. Now, what the serpent represents is exposure to life. That's temptation. So let's just stop for a second, and I'm going to get away from the story and put myself into it. This is me. What is my first sin? What is a life temptation? This is weird. This is where you have to stop into it because people might go, how old were you and what did you do? Did you steal something? I don't know, whatever. My first sin was probably stuff I can't remember. There's things that happened before I can consciously remember. When I was born, my biological father, I had a brother that was older than me by a year and a half, and my biological father used to burn my brother and I with cigarettes to get my mom to give up her tip money for him. He would go off and get alcohol, and he was a drunk. I don't even remember that stuff. But I was affected by it. There were things that were happening, but the story presumably exists with the idea in mind that as you're a child, you're in a happy state to begin with. So let's go from there, that everything is fine. You're playing in the sandbox. You're eating cookies. Mom and dad are everything is fine at home. But now what happens is you begin to judge life. And that's what that sin is. It's not a sin. It's a judgment. Again, it is, I have now had an experience. I used to believe everybody was wonderful. Now I see that there are people that are mean. There are people that are angry. There are things that are unpleasant to me. There are things that have happened to me that are hurtful to me. People have done things to me. All of these begin to accumulate, and these are the sins that are happening. It's the way that the life works, that when we start out, we are devoid of those things, of those memories, and depending on where we come from, we have those experiences, and then depending on how it's managed. Most of us are raised without it being managed. You're not taught anything. You're in a system where somebody else did the same thing. You emerge. Okay, so anyway, I'm a kid growing up, and throughout my childhood, I remember things. I was, first of all, my mom's first marriage split up. She remarried. Things were different. It's hard to always tell this story all the time. Everything is fine today, but at some point in time, it wasn't. The home was abusive. And I don't mean by, somebody banging on you or smacking you in the face. It was by somebody taking a belt or electrical cords or a switch or something that would absolutely snap and lose it. And they wouldn't whip you. They would just be, through their anger and their rage, they would just be continually whipping on you, whipping. The belt would wrap. You would have welts on your chest, around your thighs, your stomach. You'd get racked sometimes. It was somebody that was out of control. That was the kind of abuse it was. But it was also things like, oh, brother, you kids are so damn dumb. You're never going to amount to anything. You are so stupid. I remember as a child just being raised under those kind of things. So that's me living life sinning. Am I sinning? What I'm doing is I'm accumulating the judgments. I'm judging life. I'm saying, I don't like this. I hate you. I don't like you for this, and I don't like you for that. And I'm just a little kid. And up yours, and blah, blah. I've actually got all these things going on in my head as a child. That's what I'm learning. My brother learns about heaven in Sunday school. He thinks he's going to leave the abuse. He's 11 years old. I'm 9. The day that I find him, he hung himself in the woods. I cut him down. There was a reprieve for a while. The abuse began again. Eventually, I run away from home. I'm living my life here in the beginning of what now? Let's go back and look at the Bible and see where we are in this story. All right, as we go through and read it, we have to remember things like everything is analogous. Look at the tree was good for food down here. What is good for food? We're eating it, spiritual food. Tree is something we're learning. We're consuming something from life. That kind of stuff as we go through there. We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. You may have life experiences here in this happy place. But the fruit of the tree, the midst of the garden, you shall not eat of it, lest you should die. And knowing good and evil. It's the tree of knowing good and evil. So when you're a kid, you don't know good and evil, do you? You're ignorant. Everything's fine. You're happy about everything. You can see... You could look at people today and say, oh, they're ugly, oh, they're pretty, all that kind of stuff. When you were a kid, you didn't. Everybody was okay. And that's only one example. We didn't start judging and becoming a product of, kind of a fixed product at that point. So the trees are that. It's consuming life. So she ate it and she gave it to her husband and he did eat. Now, this is the one weird part. You have to look at it and go, this is strange. It's backwards. And I'll tell you why. The woman may have eaten of the tree, but she was not the one tempted. The woman is the inner self. The woman stores the memories. The woman is the subconscious. Who then consumed? Who then had life experience and judged it? Whatever the woman consumed came from the man's judgment. That means whatever we consciously decide, I hate that. That makes me ashamed. Then that is when the woman is consuming of it because you've just fed it to her. Metaphorically, you understand, it's a learning process. So I don't like the way this sounds. It makes it sound like the woman is the bad element, when in all reality, the woman is a product of the man's decisions. Consciously. We just have to understand that. And the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So what this means is now I'm ashamed. Something has happened. I don't want to tell anyone. I want to keep it a secret. I'm ashamed, or somehow there's something happening. And that's not the only thing. There could be other things that are affecting you that you do share with people. But it's like open hatred and judgment or prejudice towards things. All of those. When you're looking for inner peace, you're getting rid of all of that stuff. So I guess that goes without saying. In fact, yeah, if you're really on this course, that doesn't apply at all. You're going to be an introverted, very open-minded, very non-judgmental individual naturally. So all that goes without saying. Okay, so what's happening here? Let's go back in and read a bit more here, see where we left off. All right, I want to approach this interpretation differently than the other ones. I want to put myself into it. So I'm gonna instead of going verse by verse, we're just going to go and see what happens. Okay, so they sinned. God comes and finds them, and they get covered up. They get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and God is putting punishment upon them. Remembering God is the higher awareness. I will curse those who curse you and bless those who bless you. So right now he's cursing, putting curses upon it. But it's because of something they've done, apparently. But what does he say? Unto the woman I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Right here is where the cyclical pain comes in. It's implied. Bringing forth children is a cyclical behavior. And in pain, in sorrow, you shall bring forth children. In sorrow. So children is the offspring. As whatever we have judged reemerges again, it's going to hurt. This is our cyclical pain from whatever we have judged. And we clearly see something in here to think about. Your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. If this is mental, what does that mean? We know what it means if it's physical. We know how it's used. We know how it's used in patriarchal societies where the husband typically is dominant over the wife. The mental hierarchy works that way. It's anyway. So if it's not that though, and it's psychological, and that the consciousness is the husband and the inner self, the wife, is the subconscious. What is this telling us? This is establishing the mental hierarchy. The consciousness is in charge of what goes on in the subconscious. Yeah, that's what that means right there. The husband shall rule over you. Whatever the wife becomes is based on the husband's decision, whether the husband later likes it or not. When it acts out and the husband, and you're consciously sitting there going, son of a, why does this keep happening? It's because of what we're doing. We don't know it. The husband has put that into the wife acts it back out, and in sorrow it is. And into Adam he said, you've hearkened to the voice of your wife, and you've eaten of the tree which I've commanded you. You shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake, and in sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth to you, and shall eat of the herb of the field. Okay, let's talk about this. What is happening here? I look at that in my life and go, okay, that's where I am starting out now. I've got all of these things that I don't want to tell people about. They're secrets. They're secrets that I'm hiding away because I want people to think I'm a normal person. I don't want them to think I'm some kind of a strange individual or come from a freaky place or that they don't want to hang out with me. I have shame, and I want to put on a show because I want to be accepted, not because I'm some arrogant person. I just want to fit in, and I don't know how to fit in, but that's part of being awkward, introverted child that doesn't quite figure out that you're an introverted child. You don't quite fit anyway. So that's going to be a part of that. Okay, so what's happening here, though, is that we're really, the higher awareness, the consciousness, and the subconscious are picking up issues. And now that that's happened, we're going to have cyclical pain. In pain in childbirth, what is childbirth? Every time this emerges from me, you could say every time the thistle emerges from your garden, it's going to be bad. Every time you give birth to something that emerges from within you, it's going to be bad. It's going to be sorrowful. They're analogously the same thing because they all are representing the idea that something is emerging from within you that is derogatory. It's the cause and effect. The tree creates seeds that creates more trees of itself, that creates more seeds of itself in verse 3 of the or day 3 of the first creation story. That's where the cause and effect gets brought in right there. But that's what's happening here. We're learning that now because of these judgments you've made, you're going to go off in life and you're going to have cyclical pain as a result of those things. And they're judgments you've made. Call them sins. Be careful. Understanding a sin means a judgment. I've named that. I've qualified that. I hate it. I love it. That is a sin. It's strange. However, sin would be derogatory one, so you wouldn't say I love that as a sin. You would say I hate that. I'm ashamed of that. This one affects me when this one comes out, or I'm afraid or something, or I clam up. It's not always acting out in some way. Up here, it affects you in a manner that is like, that does not feel good. I'm scared. Something's there. Anything that is held in place that creates that feeling is a sin. The seed of something that is bad. The seed of a thistle is a sin. They're analogs. They're memories with emotion. You have to be careful, though. I think they get deeper. If you can see some things as very beautiful, the only reason that you can is because you have to hold something else as ugly in comparison. So we have to be careful how we approach this in a mental thing. It's how you live inside of your own head. Okay, so let's get back into this. Now, what are we told? That Adam is going to go off and that since you went ahead and ate what you're not supposed to, cursed is the ground for your sake, and in sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and also thistles it shall bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. By the sweat of your face shall you eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it were you taken, and you're coming, your name is Eve. Put skins and clothed them, sent them out from the garden, and then told them that drove the man out, placed to east of the garden, put cherubims and a flaming sword to turn the way to keep him out of the tree of life. Okay, so this means, for me, now, what does that mean? I'm going to go off and eat of the ground. That means I'm going to go off and live life unhappy. I'm going to go off and I'm going to be a runaway. I'm going I'm going to struggle. I'm going to not always have food. I'm going to eat out of garbage cans, and sometimes I'm going to steal. I'm going to be on street corners begging. I'm going to be brought in by somebody who says, you are a kid, you're going to die out here, who then puts you in some place where you get molested. And then you're living life accumulating these things, moving along, not consuming. You're eating thistles of life. You're not consuming what is good. You don't know what is good. Your garden is not planted good to begin with. So time goes by. And then why is the Garden of Eden blocked so you can't get back to it? You were ignorant. We didn't know. Now you know. You can't get back there. You can't get back to that feeling again, because now you know things in life that you have to find a way to. Now we must find a way to find inner peace while knowing those things. The Garden of Eden isn't the same place. We have to go to a new place where there is peace, but also the knowledge of what is true. All right, the next thing we have going on is a common motif, and that is a division. Adam and Eve are going to have son. That's us. We are going to begin to have, we're going to change. We're not going to stay our infant self. We're going to become something new. Cain and Abel are options. We can go good, we can go bad. And in this case, it seems it's not the greatest story for showing that, because it doesn't show evil very well, evil against good. But it is that struggle, good against bad, right here, in a very gentle way, showing up where Cain does win. And we're going to see something else. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So right here is where Cain and the Lord separate from each other. This is where the consciousness and the higher awareness are no longer in touch. We are now living through our memories. We're living on the land through our memories. We've stopped living through our happy selves. And let's see, we go on. There's a number of different things going on. They're building a city, having offspring. This is us going on in life. I'm going off and eventually I get married and I have a child and I go join the military and I travel the world, and then Lamech took 2 wives. One was Adah and the name of the other was Zillah. We've got another division happening right here. Story parts are going to get deep. Adah bore Jabal. He was the father of such that dwell in tents and such have cattle. So this, and such as handle the harp and organ. So this is me in my life, going and living and doing all those things, everything from working in gas stations to working in high-level places with top-secret security clearances. And all of those things are happening along the way of life. This is us in life. But we're also transitioning. The story goes along, it has to continually create new elements. It can't just have everybody die off. The story can't go. But if something dies off, that represents a part of you that dies off and a new part that takes over. I used to believe this, now I believe that. I used to be innocent, now I am not. We're not the same person at those stages, so they're sequencing in that way. This part of me wants this, it's good. This part of me wants that, it's bad. That's the characteristics, angels on the shoulders, and we got it right here in Cain and Abel. It's the same thing right there, the good and the bad. Then we divide. Now, next thing we have in chapter 5 is this. What this is an analog farm. If you took chapter 5 completely out, you wouldn't miss it. The story would still go on just fine. I think as near as I can put it, on the template, this is a time in your life where it's like, time goes by, and what happens? You're transitioning. You're getting married, you have kids, you're raising children, you're going to games, you're getting divorced, you're getting remarried, you're going to more games, you're having more kids. That is what is rolling along in this. Time goes by, I'm learning jobs, I'm developing new jobs. Whether it's tense or something else, it's not in this case. It's something different. Remembering the age of this material, the vintage of the material. This is just trying to create a lineage in there. But what it's actually doing, if you look at it, is it's adding in number sequences. These 900s are said 7 times. The 800s are said 7 times. It goes on like that. They're gathering up these numbers. There's numbers gathered up in a couple of pools that repeat 22 times in Genesis, that repeat over 6,000 times in the Bible. That's a different story. But you can just jump through chapter 5 right here and say, well, if you want to, you can just say, these are pieces of you. I had this job, and then while I was there, I learned this, and I became this person, and then after a long time, I became this person, and then after a long time, I became this person, is the way they're trying to make it sound. They want to make it sound like a lineage, but in honesty, what they're doing is they're creating an analog farm right here. This is a very purposeful piece of code. The code is something different. You can ask me about that if you want. But if you look through here, what you'll see is that there's a lineage that happens. First of all, the jobs, the tense, it's an old one. And then there's this very aggressive Adam's lineage in there, and then it goes back to that gentler style of writing again. This, chapter 5, was plunked in. You could take it out and read it, and it would be fine. It would be fine. It'd be simpler. But what it means, and you can see where they put it in, time goes by was a very small piece. They put this analog farm into right where on the end of time goes by. So they put it in the right place on the template. But it's weird. It's a complex thing compared to the rest of the story. But life goes on. What happens? And it came to pass when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. That was me in my childhood. I love everybody and everything. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all that they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Okay, so the spirit, that's that higher awareness. It's not always going to strive with us. We're going to go back and live through our memories, the flesh. There were giants in those days. These are what the offspring are of. This is what has happened to us. From saying, okay, I understand, to shut up yours, get out of the way. We've gone from having beautiful daughters to having these giants that are corrupting inside, that have corrupted us. This is our corruption. These are our daughters that have been corrupted by life experiences that we did not pay attention to. And God saw the wickedness of man. This is where we're starting to, the higher awareness looks and goes, okay, I see. I'm supposed to come back here. This is us saying, shh, you got to go to sleep. You know there's nothing you can do tonight. That's God coming back. Or Eckhart, wickedness of man. That's when he says, who is it in here talking with me? Who is it that can't live with me? Who is it? All right, this is God seeing the wickedness of man. This is your higher awareness returning, and that we have all kinds of conflict. The thoughts of the heart were evil only continually. It's your own conflict. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. The earth is my experience, and what have we made? We've unknowingly made our life experiences, and if we're grieved at our heart, that means we want to turn inward and heal. That's good. Most people don't make it past this part of the template. This is the human life template all the way up to the end here, till the calling happens. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. This is where the calling happens and where Noah becomes the called hero. All right, so in a nutshell, the way I see this, the template there as the human life template, and it's not a part of Joseph Campbell's monomyth. It is not. This has not been identified, but it's a part of what leads up to the monomyth. This is going to the master and saying, Master, how did I come about? What do I do? They can tell you how to heal, but first, how did I come about? Well, first you started off in a pure state. Then what happened is you went off and had life experiences and you lost that pure state. And you can't get back to that one because now you know things. You've learned things and you've judged things without knowing it. And you've become a product of those. And life has gone by. After you became divided, you became the person you didn't want to become. You continued to have life experiences over and over as you're learning jobs and going through life until you get to the point where you go, God, I want to change. I want to turn inward. I need to make the steps. And then that's when the Noah part picks up right there. You would also note, and I didn't say this, where God disappeared with Cain earlier, this is where God reappears. If we get down into chapter 12, where God calls Abram, this sequence is going to start over again. Abram and Sarai are going to be equivalent to Adam and Eve on the template. And very soon after putting them there, God is going to disappear. And in the same way that God reappeared when it was time to call Noah, God is going to reappear when it's time to call Abram and turn him into Abraham. So we see the sequential higher awareness. We lose contact with it as we live through our memories, and then we reattach to it because that's what we want to live through. We learn life and live through our memories. Then we go, oh, I don't want to do that. I can now live through my higher awareness and not through those painful memories. So let me heal and do that. That's the objective. Okay, I think that's it for this video then. I need to try and keep it short, and there's no possible way to when you're doing this. It's old stuff, and abbreviating it just really doesn't do it justice. Because they couldn't back then. They had all day. They would have sit and listened because they had nothing else to do. It would have just been so different. We don't shut off things either. They wouldn't have shut off whoever had something to say that was intelligent, that had stories to tell. All right. See you in the next video.